Welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Health Sciences, SOHS. Postgraduate Diploma in Geriatric Medicine, PGDGM, revised. MME 105 Clinical Geriatrics I. Block 1 Different Phase of Clinical Geriatrics. Unit 3 Infections, 3.0 Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to X. Describe the pathogenesis of infections in the elderly. X. Explain the approach to infections in the elderly. X. Outline the principles of antimicrobial therapy in the elderly. X. Discuss the immunization in the elderly. 3.1 Introduction. In this unit, we shall be reading about the general principles of infections, their management, and immunization in the elderly. Discussion about the specific infections, such as bronchopneumonia, urinary tract infection, infective endocarditis, etc., is beyond the scope of this chapter. These have been covered in the subsequent units of this course and the next course MME 106 for a detailed discussion of the above said infections. The older people are more susceptible to infections and its complications. As there is an increase in the aging population, it becomes essential to understand the unique features of infections in the elderly. Infections are among the most common causes of hospitalization and mortality in community-dwelling and institutionalized elderly. During hospitalization for various problems, elderly are at increased risk of getting hospital-acquired infections, and it is associated with a higher mortality rate. 3.2 Predisposing factors in the elderly. Let us read more about the factors which predispose elderly to infections. 1. Immunosenescence. We have read about the immunological changes of aging in Unit 2 of Block 2 of MME 104. Waning of host immune function and defense system increase the risk of infections in older people. Immunosenescence is a state not only of reduced immunity but also of a dysregulated immune response. Body's immune response to infection is reduced by multiple complex pathways in older people. Both the innate and adaptive immune responses are altered and decreased. There is a dysregulated cytokine production with aging. Aging is associated with thymic involution and depressed T cell function. B cells produce low affinity antibodies which reduce the immunogenicity and protective effects of vaccination in older people. 2. Age-related changes in organ-specific defenses. The age-associated changes in the defense mechanisms of different organs that may predispose older people to infections are given in Table 3. 1. Details of these changes have already been covered in Unit 2 of Block 2 of MME 104. Table 3.1. Age-associated changes in the defense mechanism of, look at the screen. 3. Comorbidity. In older people, comorbidities decrease the innate immune response. Comorbidities increase the incidence of infection and mortality. Let us illustrate this with an example. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is a risk factor for lower respiratory tract infections in the elderly. COPD causes impaired mucociliary clearance, alveolar, macrophage dysfunction, and impaired cough reflex, making them prone for lower respiratory tract infections. Hospitalization for treating infections in older people is rather higher for those with comorbidities than for those who do not have them. Comorbidities that predispose the older people to infections are given in Box 3.1. Diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, renal failure, cardiac failure, malignancies, dementia and peripheral vascular disease. 4. Diminished mobility or immobility. Edema of soft tissue will occur leading to skin and soft tissue infections. In bed-ridden patients, pressure ulcers and aspiration pneumonia are common and they lead to increased morbidity and mortality. 5. Nutrition. Protein energy malnutrition, PEM, is common in older people and is often an under-recognized problem. PEM is associated with 3/4 delayed wound healing, 3/4 formation of pressure ulcers, 3/4 increased risk of nosocomial infections, 3/4 increased length of hospital stay. 3/4 increased mortality. 3/4 poor response to vaccine. During comprehensive geriatric assessment, CGA, of older people, nutritional assessment should be done and the malnourished and those who are at the risk of malnutrition are to be identified. Adequate nutrition should be encouraged and provided to them to prevent infections and their complications. 6. Social and environmental factors. Those with lower economic status and those who live in old age homes and nursing homes are at increased risk of infections because of crowding, poor nutritional status, exposure to smoke and pollution, inadequate vaccination. Some infections are more common in the elderly. Let us learn more about these. We shall also be learning about the sources of infections in elderly in this section. Common infections in the elderly. The common infections that occur in the elderly are given in box 3.2. Lower respiratory tract infection and pneumonia, urinary tract infection, tuberculosis, diarrhea and gastroenteritis, skin and soft tissue infections, herpes zoster, cellulitis, bed sore, meningitis, endocarditis, septicemia, pyrexia of unknown origin. Sources of infection. The source of infection has a great bearing in determining the subsequent course of event. The various sources of infection are discussed below. 1. Community-acquired infection. Most infections are acquired in the community. The spectrum of community-acquired infection can be very wide and is influenced by epidemiology of various diseases in a given geographic distribution. In general, community-acquired infections are due to antibiotic-sensitive organisms. Community-acquired infection can be sporadic or of epidemic proportion. 2. Hospital-acquired infection, nosocomial infection. Infection acquired during or as a result of hospitalization is termed as hospital-acquired or nosocomial infection. Any infection appearing after 48 hours of hospitalization is considered as hospital-acquired. The usual syndromes of nosocomial infection are pneumonia, urinary tract infection, bacteremia and wound infection. Common infectious organisms acquired in hospital are Staphylococcus aureus, E. coli, Pseudomonas, Klebsiella pneumoniae, Acinetobacter, Legionella, Candida and Aspergillus species. Hospital-acquired infections are usually due to multi-drug resistant strains and are extremely difficult to treat and are associated with extremely high cost implications. 3.4 Clinical presentation of infections in elderly. You have already read about the varied clinical presentation of different diseases in elderly in the previous unit. Many older patients present with classical manifestations of disease and pose little problem in diagnosis. A large number of patients, especially the frail ones, however, have atypical clinical and laboratory manifestations with no usual features of infection. Symptoms and signs which reflect the intensity of inflammation may be mild or absent. As a result, fever may not be present in serious infections and absence of fever often indicates poor prognosis. Frail older people rather have a lower mean basal temperature than the accepted normal basal temperature. The accepted normal basal temperature is 98.6 OF, 37 OC. Fever in frail older adults is defined as in box 3.3. A single oral temperature greater than 104. Repeated oral temperatures greater than 99 F or repeated rectal temperatures greater than 99.5 F or increase in temperature greater than 2 F over baseline temperature. Box 3.3. Criteria for fever in the frail elderly. Organ-specific symptoms may also be mild in intensity. Unexplained, acute onset of shortness of breath may be the only symptom of pneumonia, and abdominal sepsis may present with fever without any abdominal symptoms. Recent onset change in health and functional status may be the only manifestation of infection. Always remember to consider infection in an older patient presenting with recent onset of symptoms listed below in Box 3.4. Weakness, easy fatigability, breathlessness, anorexia, refusal of feeds and unexplained weight loss. Acute confusional state, avoidance of social contact and social isolation. Incontinence, immobility, falls and exacerbation or worsening of underlying comorbidities such as diabetes, cardiac failure, etc. Box 3.4. Clinical presentation of infection in the elderly. Physical signs in older patients often are not diagnostic. Presence of multiple diseases causes additional problem in assigning significance to a physical sign. The laboratory manifestation of infection may also be subtle. Leukocytosis may be absent, and anemia may be the only evidence of infection. Radiological features of tuberculosis in old age tend to be non-specific and widespread when compared to typical upper lobe fibro cavitary lesion in younger subjects. Higher risk of complications, slow resolution, and higher risk of death are the hallmarks of infectious disease in old age. Always remember to include infection in the differential diagnosis of ill-defined constellation of symptoms and signs in older people. 3.5 Principles of antibiotic therapy. Age-related changes in the organs and comorbidities alter the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination of antibiotics in the elderly. The pharmacokinetic issues that have to be considered while prescribing antimicrobials are shown in Table 3.2. Table 3.2. Age-related changes in the pharmacokinetics of drugs. Look at the screen. Older people usually take multiple medications and hence they are prone to develop adverse drug events. The adverse effects of the antimicrobials commonly used in the elderly are given in Table 3.3. Table 3.3. Adverse effects of antimicrobial agents. Antimicrobial agent adverse effects. Azithromycin abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, vaginitis. Clarithromycin abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, CNS toxicity. Erythromycin diarrhea, hepatotoxicity, QT prolongation, ototoxicity. Fluoroquinolones peripheral neuropathy, tendon rupture, QT prolongation, CNS toxicity. Sulfonamides rash, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, GI toxicity, bone marrow suppression. Tetracyclines photosensitivity, GI toxicity, CNS toxicity. Beta-lactam antibiotics rash, hypersensitivity, CNS toxicity, bone marrow suppression. Aminoglycosides nephrotoxicity, isoniazid peripheral neuropathy. Rifampicin hepatotoxicity, pyrazinamide hepatotoxicity, joint pain. Fluconazole hepatotoxicity, acyclovir nephrotoxicity, CNS toxicity. As older people have multiple comorbidities, they take multiple infections medications at a time. This is called polypharmacy. Polypharmacy makes them prone for drug-drug and drug-disease interactions. The common drug-drug interactions involving the antimicrobials and other drugs used in elderly are given in the Table 3.4. Table 3.4. Drug-drug interactions of antimicrobials. Antimicrobial interacting drugs adverse events. Azithromycin antacids N peak concentration. Digoxin N concentration of digoxin. Erythromycin oral anticoagulant N risk of bleeding. Carbamazepine N carbamazepine toxicity. Digoxin N digoxin toxicity. HMG CoA reductase inhibitors N risk of rhabdomyolysis. Fluoroquinolones antacids P fluoroquinolone effect. Oral anticoagulants N prothrombin time. Metronidazole oral anticoagulants N risk of bleeding. Nitrofurantoin fluoroquinolone P effect of nitrofurantoin. Cephalosporins aminoglycosides N nephrotoxicity. Furosemide N nephrotoxicity. Vancomycin aminoglycosides N nephrotoxicity N. Ototoxicity. Sulfonamides anti-diabetics N risk of hypoglycemia. Linezolid selective serotonin reuptake N risk of serotonin inhibitors syndrome. Acyclovir aminoglycosides N nephrotoxicity. Fluconazole sulfonylureas N risk of hypoglycemia. Thiazides N concentration of Fluconazole. We have to adjust the antimicrobial dose in renal and hepatic impairment. Whenever a new drug is started in the elderly, we follow the start low, go slow rule. But this is not applicable while treating infections in older people. Early and aggressive antibiotic therapy is essential to prevent adverse outcomes. Antibiotics should be started early for all presumed infections. Once samples for microbiological investigations are sent, to avoid complications and mortality from delay in treatment, antibiotics should be started even before the results of investigations are available. Rapid administration of first dose of antibiotic in severe infections such as sepsis, pneumonia, and meningitis is essential. Initial therapy may be empirical. It is always advisable to start with broad-spectrum antimicrobial agent, which covers all possible organisms responsible for that condition. Specific narrow-spectrum antibiotic should be instituted only after obtaining a definitive microbiological diagnosis. In order to avoid inconsistency in absorption of oral drug administration, injectable antibiotics should be preferred for all serious infections. However, the duration of parenteral antibiotic should be short, and oral antibiotic should be started early, to facilitate early mobilization and to avoid prolonged hospital stay. When evaluating a patient with infection, 3/4 the first step is identifying the site of infection and the most likely organism causing the infection. 3/4 the second step is assessing the severity of infection. The severity of infection influences the choice of antibiotic, dose, and route of administration. 3/4 in general, parenteral administration of an empirical broad-spectrum antibiotic is preferred for severe infections. 3/4 we must consider the pharmacokinetic changes and interactions in older people while starting antibiotics for them. 3/4 once the culture reports arrive, we must switch over to an antibiotic to which the identified pathogen is susceptible. The suggested empirical antimicrobial agents for the treatment of common infections in older adults are given in Table 3.5. Table 3.5, Empirical antimicrobials for infections. Look at the screen. Colonization without infection commonly occurs in older people, especially skin and nasal colonization and asymptomatic bacteriuria. Only those with symptoms and those who undergo surgical procedure should receive treatment. Asymptomatic colonization should not be treated. It will lead to unnecessary use of antibiotics and antibiotic resistance. Swab cultures of pressure ulcers and urine culture in those with indwelling catheter are always positive, and the results do not correlate with the clinically relevant cultures such as bone biopsy under a pressure ulcer and blood culture in those with indwelling catheter. Unnecessary swab cultures of pressure ulcers and urine culture in those with indwelling catheter should be avoided. This will reduce the unnecessary use of antibiotic and antibiotic resistance. Multidrug resistant organisms. Older adults are at a higher risk of acquiring multidrug resistant organism than the younger people. The reasons are given in box 3.5. Residing in a long-term care facility, nursing home. Comorbidities such as diabetes, COPD, renal failure. Prolonged indwelling urinary catheters, intravascular devices. Recent hospitalization. Recent antibiotic administration. Recent colonization with multidrug resistant organism. Box 3.5. Risk factors for acquiring MDR organisms in the elderly. The common multidrug resistant organisms include methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, antibiotic-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, 1. Extended spectrum beta, lactamase-positive strains, ESBL. 2. Carbapenem-resistant strains, Acinetobacter spp. The clinician should consider the likelihood of antimicrobial resistance while treating the elderly with infections, especially in the acute care and long-term care setups. Hospitals and laboratories should provide the data on local susceptibility profile of common pathogens to the clinician when we suspect an antimicrobial resistant pathogen. Before the culture reports arrive, we should start the patient on combination therapy on empirical basis. Usually, combination therapy provides additive or synergistic effect, but the possibility of toxicity and cost are high. Once the culture reports are available, we should narrow down to the susceptible antimicrobial. 3.6 Management of infectious syndrome. Management of infectious syndrome includes the management of fever of unknown origin and treatment for the bacteremia and sepsis. 3.6.1 Fever of unknown origin. Fever of unknown origin is defined as fever of 1010 F for at least 3 weeks, and fever which remains undiagnosed after 1 week of medical evaluation. The causes of FUO in older people are different from those of the younger, making the diagnostic workup different in them. Around 35% of the FUO are due to infections. Among the infections, intra-abdominal abscess, infective endocarditis and tuberculosis are the common underlying causes. In contrast to younger people, older people, next to infections, have connective tissue disorders as a frequent cause of FUO. Of the connective tissue disorders, temporal arteritis is the common cause of FUO in older people. Malignancy is seen in 20% cases of FUO in the elderly. Hematological malignancies and solid tumors can present as FUO in the elderly. In around 10% cases, no cause can be found even after a detailed evaluation. The evaluation of FUO in the elderly is based on the above causes: a thorough history, physical examination, basic blood investigations, such as complete blood count, ESR, renal and liver function tests, thyroid function test, chest X-ray, blood and urine culture should be done in all older patients with FUO. If the source remains obscure, do a CT or MRI abdomen to rule out abdominal abscess. Specific investigations to diagnose the cause have to be done accordingly. 3.6.2 Bacteremia and sepsis. Among the elderly, bacteremia is common and it carries a poor prognosis. Usually, it arises from the gastrointestinal or genitourinary source. So, the causative organism is mainly a gram-negative rod. The usual clinical presentation of sepsis, such as fever, chills, or diaphoresis, are absent. The initial management consists of broad coverage of microbials. It is necessary to cover MRSA, gram-negative rods, enterococci and other resistant organisms. Mortality is greatly reduced if the initial antibiotic covers the organism that is isolated. 3.7 Immunization in the elderly. Despite the reduced response to vaccination in older people, the risk of infections, associated complications and mortality are lower in those who are vaccinated than among those who are unvaccinated. Pneumococcal vaccine. Pneumococcal vaccine is recommended for older people aged 65 and above and patients under the age of 65 with comorbidities. 2 types of vaccines are available. 1. 23-valent polysaccharide vaccine, PPSV23. 2. 13-valent pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, PCV13. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommendations for pneumococcal vaccination is given in box 3.6. 1. For pneumococcal vaccine naive persons aged 65 and above, PCV13 followed by PPSV23, 6 to 12 months later. 2. For persons who have received PPSV23 first at the age of 65 and above, give PCV13, 1 year later. 3. For persons who have received PPSV23 before the age of 65 and who are now 65, give PCV13. There should be at least 1 year duration from the 1 street dose of PPSV23. Then give PPSV23, 6 to 12 months later. There should be a minimum interval of 5 years between the 2 doses of PPSV23. Box 3.6 ACIP Recommendations for Pneumococcal Vaccination in the Elderly. Influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccination reduces the respiratory illness, hospitalization, and mortality in older people. 3 vaccines are available. Influenza vaccine contains killed influenza virus with the efficacy rate of 60% for illness and 50 to 60% for mortality. 1. Trivalent inactivated vaccine, IIV3, contains components of H1N1, hydrogen nitride and B strains. 2. Quadrivalent inactivated vaccine, IIV4, contains an additional strain in addition to the above strains. 3. High-dose influenza vaccine, IIV3HD. ACIP recommends influenza vaccination annually for older people prior to the influenza season. High-dose influenza vaccine is shown to be more effective in older people than the standard dose vaccine. Herpes zoster vaccine. Herpes zoster infection reactivation and post-herpetic neuralgia are common in older people. Zoster vaccine reduces the risk of infection by 50% and post-herpetic neuralgia by 60%. ACIP recommends zoster vaccine for all above 60 years of age. Tetanus, diphtheria and pertussis vaccine. Older people are associated with the subprotective levels of tetanus antibody. 4. Those who have received less than 3 doses of tetanus immunization or those who are uncertain about the tetanus immunization should receive a complete vaccine series. A booster dose at 10-year interval, or more frequently with injuries is advised. Pertussis protection wanes with age. All adults including those who are aged 65 and above should receive an acellular pertussis formulation. This can be given as TDAP during the scheduled tetanus booster. 3.8 Summary. You have learned that older adults are at increased risk of infections because of the presence of waning immunity, multiple comorbid illnesses, functional limitations and frailty. Older people with infections frequently present in an atypical fashion. Colonization. Without infection occurs in older people. Asymptomatic colonization should not be treated. You have learned that specific infectious syndromes are severe in older people. And you have also learnt about the principles of antibiotic therapy in the elderly. Early, aggressive antibiotic therapy is essential to prevent adverse outcomes. You have also learned that the response to vaccination is poor in older people. Despite that, the risk of infection, associated complications and mortality are rather lower in those who are vaccinated than in those who are unvaccinated. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.